A brief peek into our crisis communication program, Charles de Gaulle, President of France, once said, "Faced with crisis, the man of character falls back on himself. He imposes his own stamp of action, takes responsibility for it, makes it his own." What is a crisis? Many may imagine a crisis to be a disaster, such as an oil spill, a plane crash, a collapsed architecture, disease outbreak causing death, etc. However, did you know that data privacy leaks and cybersecurity lapses are the more prevalent crises? And with pandemics, companies can face new types of crises that lead to media and reputation crises as well. With every business running on the internet and the cloud, the rise of cybersecurity and data breaches are beginning to look more like a matter of when, rather than if. If so, how should businesses preemptively deal with such crises? What makes effective crisis communications? A good crisis communication program must stand up to the toughest scenarios. The toughest scenarios are in an airline jet and a hospital. We adapted the best practices from the aviation industry, that of threat and error management, and crew resource management into our program. We bring experience from aviation multi-crew cooperation to understand how pilots handle stressful and crisis situations, challenges and emergencies, using checklists, procedures, and recovery methodologies. These best practices have also been adopted by the medical industry. This is a succinct crisis communications training primer program for busy business leaders and executives, and how it fits into the ISO 22361 world. We will prep your leaders to be media savvy and be ready for TV, radio, and crisis media conferences. The half-day primer will end with a mock TV interview and critique media crises. For many businesses, they will not face a crisis that demands massive collaboration internally and externally to deal with such a crisis. But as a crisis goes, they are unpredictable and unscheduled for. They just happen. And these days, with every business running on the internet and the cloud, the rise of cybersecurity and data breaches are beginning to look more like a matter of when rather than if. If so, how should businesses preemptively deal with such crises? Flight deck paradigm. When it comes to crises and the eventual need for crisis communication, we can learn and adapt from the most crisis-ready industry in the world, aviation. In aviation, pilots use crew resource management, which are time and field proven to deal with all manners of analyses, situations, teamwork, and crises. We go through brief principles of aviation CRM and how to deal with various threats, a discussion of ethics and compliance, and the basic steps of crisis communication, checklists, holding statements, and more. Who are the stakeholders in a crisis? Who should we call during a crisis? Who should do what in a crisis? What are holding statements? How do we prepare our spokespersons in a crisis? How should we prepare for media conferences in a crisis? How should spokespersons handle doorstop interviews? What should businesses do with the various social media or even dark social channels during a crisis? Simulated television interview. Although spokespersons go through many forms of media interviews, from print, online, broadcast, and video, the television interview is perhaps the most iconic, as it is demanding and requires succinct and effective communication in minutes. We usually run through some simulation questions with our clients' spokespersons, and then put them through a simulated television interview with video recording, and then provide critique for their simulated interviews. Benjamin Franklin, inventor and diplomat, once said, "By failing to prepare, you are preparing to fail." As with any leadership role, media interviews and crisis communication need preparation to succeed. We aim to equip our clients with the basics to allow them to prepare and be ready for such unfortunate crises. Contact us for effective public relations in Asia Pacific, media training, and crisis communication needs.